What is the significance of a high-profile coach at a very high-profile school saying that out loud?
Well, it puts into public conversation a very uncomfortable and potentially unfair, but also very realistic possibility. I mean, if you look at the ACC alone, that conference spans 10 different states. And there's no telling what each of those varying restrictions might look like when these schools can or can't open. So there is a financially dire situation at all of these schools if there is no football. So those that can play will probably try to play, even if it's unfair and some can't.
Yeah, the ACC is 10 states. The Big Ten is 11 states. The SEC is 11 states. So how are the conferences ultimately, assuming it is the individual conferences who will ultimately make these decisions, how will they go about making those calls?
Well, let me be very clear and say that the commissioners we have spoken to ideally want to do this together, but they are leaning on national experts, medical experts, state governors and officials. They have been on a call recently with Vice President Mike Pence and White House scientists and experts to help make these decisions. But at the end of the day, it might be out of their hands and all in the hands of the scientists and state and government officials.
And let me quickly ask you, what about fans in the seats? Because this is obviously so different in college than it is in professional sports, both financially and I suppose ethically. What will they do about fans at these games?
Well, they're going to try to play however they can play, but I will tell you this. Let me tell you what Clay Helton at USC told me. He said, the Coliseum without fans would not feel right. When it's safe to come back, we should all be able to come back, not just some of us. So everyone recognizes the fans are a huge part of the game, but they know that they have to put safety first.
All right, Heather, outstanding. Thank you so much for this, and we'll check in with you again soon. Let me get my guys in here this morning. I've got Marcus Spears, and look at Jeff Saturday has joined the Get Up party this morning. It's great to have you. But Swagoo, I'll start with you. Obviously, right there in the heart of SEC country, you're hearing these conversations about, here's James Franklin and the Big Ten saying, hey, if some of us can open and some of us can't, then don't penalize the schools that can open. What do you think of that?
Gee, I'm on both sides. Obviously, you think about the ramifications of what the season would be and how would we asterisk the season with a national champion or a conference champion. But that's stuff that's later down the road. In the immediate, you think about the revenue that we've been talking about that college would proposably lose if they didn't have a season, regardless of if that was 9 of the 11 schools, for example, or 10 of the 14 in the SEC. And you would say, look, let's create a revenue share for the teams that can play to help and benefit the teams that aren't able to open up and play yet, and still keep this conference alive. Because at the end of the day, when we come out of this, these schools that possibly won't have that opportunity to play need to be able to come back in and continue on like a regular season for their other sports in order to bring themselves into football season. So for me, it's very simple. If you have teams that can play, and I'm talking majority, you don't open the conferences if only 2 or 3 teams can play. But if you have, for example, 10 or 14 schools that can play and 4 can't, I think they should, and they should help those 4 schools that can't play in order to continue the conference success going forward.
Yeah, there is both the financial piece of this and then the personal piece. And Jeff, I'll come to you on that because you have a son who is playing Division I college football right now. So as a parent, I would just ask you if, for example, they say, and we're bringing the football team back, but the regular students, if you will, are not coming back yet. How would you feel about that?
Yeah, it's a tough question, Greeny. And the truth is, my wife and I have had that discussion. And when we talked about it, we understand the risk that could be involved. But I think ultimately I would prefer it without other students, right? Keep the circle as small as possible. As for as long as possible. And then as we see how health and safety is progressing, then potentially allowing something else to change.
Fascinating. And obviously we'll work a little bit on Jeff's audio there, but it is a really important piece of this. What do you think of that, Marcus? The idea, that's a different perspective on it than we've heard so far. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And when you think about that, and I'm glad you asked Jeff that question, Listen, football players are not normal. Athletes are not normal when it comes to college. There's a delineation between athletes and students, and it's in every possible culture of college. If you go on a college campus and walk a day with a student that just goes to class and that's getting a degree, and walk with an athlete that's got football practice, basketball practice, whatever, it's a totally different culture when you play in sports. So yes, they will separate that, and they will bring football players back, and football in particular, because it funds a lot of things that doesn't have anything to do with football. So yes, it's a tough question, and yes, you worry about the safety of the football players and the athletes and the staff around that, but at the end of the day, if they have to treat them different, they are going to, because they already do.
That's a really important point. To me, of all the things we have going on right now, this is the most interesting because it has the most permutations. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.